Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we hit it from the off with a Manchester United swoop for Declan Rice. This did come out from the Telegraph this lunchtime, but I waited on this and I'm glad I did because now more clarity is coming out this evening that West Ham genuinely are interested in Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire. Could Man United construct a swap deal for Declan Rice there? We'll talk about that. Also, Man United are moving in, apparently, on their centre-back, and it will not be Kim Min-jae. We'll talk about that as well. And, of course, the price is rising for Mason Mount. How high will Manchester United go? Mason Mount himself fearing tonight he might get priced out of a move to Chelsea, who've pocketed a cool 150 million in the last 48 hours. Will United be able to get in there and get that Mount deal done? Do you want it to happen? Plus, a little bit of an update on the sale process. Might not be the update you want. Stuart Haffenden, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining and supporting the channel. And the Fuzzy One says, hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. And before we get into anything, the Fuzzy One actually sort of works about what I'm going to talk about. It's our old friend Manscaped. Fuzzy One, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. We're sponsored by Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code United Stand. Links in the video description as well. If you don't know what Manscaped is by now, where have you been? This is the Lawnmower 4.0. It's a fantastic, powerful piece of kit. I get used to putting something like that in my hands, but the Lawnmower 4.0 is actually incredible. It's got a 4,000 RPM engine. It's got a light for a more precise shave. It's waterproof. It's got electromagnetic induction charging where you just drop it in the port, no wires, take it out when it's charged. And basically, it's precision engineering for your family jewels. That's what it's all about. This is a fantastic gift. It's a fantastic gift for yourself. You will not regret it. 20% off with the code United Stand. You can also get the Weed Whacker, which goes up your nose. If you're of a certain age, this is a godsend. You're heading out on a night out. You've got your aftershave on. You've got your shirt on. You've done your hair. One last little check in the mirror, and there's a bogey doing a bungee jump from a nasal hair. This is what the Weed Whacker can do. Up there. And away you go. Check it out. Fantastic Manscaped. Fantastic products. They're really high quality. 20% off, free worldwide shipping with the code United Stand. Big shout out to Manscaped. Zayn Miassi is an Arsenal fan. He says, Rice is ours. Stop trying to nick our players, says Zayn Miassi. Well, it's interesting because we're going to go straight into this. Forget Mount. Goldbridge for the midfield has a nice Rabana, says Christian. Check out my absolute worldie on my Instagram at Goldbridge Mark. The link should be in the video description. It should be in the live chat. Absolute fantastic. I don't know what more I've got to do to get an outfield slot in the Sidemen charity game. You know, not only would I probably be the oldest player that's ever played, I'd absolutely tear it up. You know, the techers in these feet. But on a serious note, let's get into the story. So this Declan Rice story, first of all, Ten Hag really wants Declan Rice. He really likes him. He sees him as the midfielder that can be the heir apparent to Casemiro for the next 10 years. He can also become the captain of Manchester United. There's gears to go through with Declan Rice. Whether he goes to Arsenal, Manchester United, Man City, this is a player I followed for a while. This is a player that I know. I know people who know him. I know people who've trained with him. And effectively, Declan Rice will go up in gears when he goes to a bigger club. At West Ham, he's restricted. He's got to defend. He's got to protect a team that defends a lot. In a more expansive side, he can be more expansive. And Declan Rice has got gears to go up in that sense. So someone's going to get a really good player. You're probably going to overpay for him. The English tax, West Ham want a lot of money for him. But Sam says, what about Tonali? We'll talk about that in a minute. What a signing Tonali will be for Newcastle United, not Manchester United. Race you for the signature, Zane, says Slow Sports News. Nothing's confirmed until a player signs. Hope you're good, Mark. Nose looks smooth. Well, thank you very much, Slow Sports News. So look, this story broke at lunchtime. The Telegraph said that Manchester United are considering, preparing, you know, whatever you want to say. Man United are considering hijacking the Declan Rice deal to Arsenal by offering up Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire as a swap deal. Now, look, that to me sounds like the sort of deal Chelsea do. That sounds the sort of deal Liverpool do. It sounds way too logical and way too intelligent for Manchester United. So I thought, well, I'm not getting involved in this. monitoring, considering, progressing, thinking. They're all the same things with United. It's just a load of crap. Do you think that Ten Hag is planning more for the following season, not the one coming, given the sale uncertainties, says Sean? No, I think you can't prepare for the season after next, Sean, as a manager of any Premier League club. You don't know whether you're going to be in charge at Christmas. You've got to be planning for now. Henry, welcome to Members Club. Rice loves it at Old Trafford. Every time he plays there, he comes out early and stands in the middle taking pictures on his phone. He always makes time for selfies with our fans. I think, look, Wes, I'm going to get shot down here by Arsenal fans, but I do think Declan Rice to Man United is a threat to Arsenal if we can come up with the right sort of bid. Now, let's work through that. If the swap happens, can we also swap Beth for Katy Perry, says Rob. I don't know what Katy Perry's football knowledge is. You've got to give that to Beth. And the only player that is yours is Havertz, who just got finessed by the American Bull. What do you think about this, Mark? Says Rishit, talking about Arsenal. And I've always felt Rice was made for us, future captain, heroic type figure. Arsenal just feels a bit small time for him, says Nick. I agree with Nick. Look, let's move through the story and then we can talk about Declan Rice. So, lunchtime, story comes out. United considering offering Maguire and McTominay for Declan Rice. And I thought, you know what? The story about Mason Mount and the bid had just come out. I thought, I'm not going to do a video. I'm going to wait till later on. The biggest significant update here, whether you want to take it or not, is from a Twitter account called XWHU Employee, which stands for ex-West Ham United Employee. This is a Twitter account that's been around for a long time. They have a Patreon as well. I don't know I haven't got the inside track on who that is and what ex-West Ham United employee they are, or whether they're just somebody with good sources. But they've always been very good in relation to West Ham, in relation to nobody can be perfect. But they've always been very good on West Ham information. They've said this today. Two things, really. One, the Declan Rice deal probably doesn't get done until, end of June, July now, because Declan Rice has gone on holiday. So keep that in your mind. It doesn't look like Arsenal are going to get this done really quickly. The second thing they said is we suspect the rumour of Manchester United entering the Declan Rice race with a player plus cash deal could be true. West Ham would consider Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay in any deal. So this is coming in from sources close to West Ham. They think that Declan Rice may well have his eyes on Manchester United, and a cash plus player deal could be true, with West Ham very interested in Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. Maguire would need to take a cut in his wages, of course, and David Moyes is an admirer of Scott McTominay. So that's where we are with that. But then, very interestingly, in more recent times, The Guardian, literally, in the last sort of couple of hours, have come out and said West Ham are targeting Manchester United's Scott McTominay. So this story from lunchtime, Man United are considering, is now hitting, from West Ham sources, an element of truth to the story. So you sort of go back to the biggest problem United always have. Agent Shaw has played a massive role if we land Rice, says Porik. Also, don't forget, Maguire plus McTominay plus 45 million, wages saved too, says Matthew. I think what you've also got to consider here is that this story has developed to a point where I would spend more time talking about it. We're going to talk about how we could construct this deal, because it's not easily constructible, comparable to what Arsenal will do. United are looking, considering, watching, appreciating, progressing until they sign for our rivals, says Lee. And Rice already rejected Mark, sadly, says CL11. No, he didn't. And a proper football club would make that swap deal happen. No chance United can do it without transfer negotiation team, says Wick. And that's my assessment here. I actually think this deal is doable. I don't think it's pie in the sky. At lunchtime, I was like, oh, this is just a load of crap. It will never happen. I actually do think it's doable, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I agree with a lot of people in the chat. I think the reason it won't happen is because we don't have the negotiation team to make it happen. It's difficult, but doable. We don't do easy, but doable. So I don't think our recruitment team is capable of constructing this deal. I think Declan Rice would come to Manchester United. He's got a great relationship with Luke Shaw. Mason Mount is one of his best friends. If he comes to United with Luke Shaw already there, I think he would come to United. I think he likes United. He's always liked United. There's a spot in the team for him there where he can be more expansive at one of the biggest clubs in the world. He can be a future captain. I think Declan Rice would love to come to Manchester United. I also think he'd love to go to Arsenal. I'm not disrespecting that. What we're talking about here is Arsenal are going to win that race. What we're talking about is, can we get in the Rice race? What decision he makes, I think we've got a chance. But you've got to get in the race first. Clearly, we can get in the race. Clearly, West Ham will welcome us into the race. But will United get in there? Mark, which is your preferred midfield option for United? Mountain Rice or Mountain Casido or Barella and Tonali, says Hasha. I'll talk about that in a bit. And Højlund plus Rice and selling 5 players makes the team right. Glazers selling to Qatar makes the club right. Thoughts, says Shahul. So, look, Arsenal's offer for Declan Rice is around 90 million with add-ons at the moment. And I think that will get done in one way, shape or form. His wages, don't worry about that. Whatever Arsenal are paying, Man United will pay more because we always pay more. So how do we construct a £90 million deal that West Ham want that is suitable for us? Well, Scott McTominay's worth about 30 million. So straight away, David Moyes likes Scott McTominay. I think Scott McTominay would be a good signing for West Ham. I saw his performance for Scotland last night. He's not good enough to start for Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, but he is good enough to start for West Ham or Everton. So Scott McTominay to West Ham works. It works. It's a good deal for them. And I think he'd be a good player for them. And I think they'd like him and I think he'd like it. Scott McTominay's worth 30 million. Do you offer West Ham 60 million plus Scott McTominay? We can probably do that. There's the deal. Get it done. You can probably do that. That's one option. 60 plus McTominay. You can do it. What about Harry Maguire as well? Well, Harry Maguire's worth about 30. So you give them McTominay and Maguire and 20 million or 30 million. Deal done. The problem with Maguire is his wages. Well, you're gonna have to give him a £10 million payout to do that because he's on 200 grand a week. So you're gonna have to give a bit of a payout to do that. The stumbling block with the wages will be that Maguire has to take a wage cut at West Ham, but he gets a bonus payment from United on his way out. We can do it. We can do it. But you know as well as I do that that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I think Harry Maguire's worth 30. I think Scott McTominay's worth 30. There's £60 million worth of player there, and you give them another 30 or 40 if you're feeling generous. But we can do the deal. We can do the deal. But it won't happen. I agree with Solid Blake. It won't happen because we're not capable of doing it. If this was Liverpool, if this was Chelsea, I'd expect them to get it done. I think they've got the people to do it. Now, Owan says it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's only a fairy tale because of who we've got negotiating. Riddle me this. Eric Ten Hag is getting more and more infuriated by the day, says Alex. It's coming in from very good West Ham sources that they want McTominay and Maguire. If Man United want Rice and they want McTominay and Maguire, why is it a fairy tale? It's just construction of a deal. I mean, from West Ham's point of view, and this is something nobody will acknowledge, people are saying, Mark, you're having a laugh, but you're not listening. You're being really thick. Good sources, good people close to West Ham, good journalists are saying West Ham want McTominay and they like Maguire. So we're not. I think people are treating this like, let's hijack the Rice deal and give them Fred and Henderson and Martial, who they don't want. They genuinely do want McTominay and they do want Maguire. So that's not me making up. We're not sat here constructing swap deals for players. Like, this is a genuine interest for two of our players. And they would be good players for West Ham. I think Maguire and McTominay would be good players for them. But also, what people don't realise is, if you're West Ham, 1 minute. It never fails to amaze me that I always do an 8 o'clock stream, and certain prats in my house still, as they walk past my room and hear me streaming, go into another room and leave the door wide open with the radio, and then walk out of it and leave the door wide open. What is it in the brain of an under 15-year-old that cannot shut fridges, doors and cupboards? I don't know what it is. Do you hit 15 years of age and you have this awakening moment? Oh, I must shut the door behind me or the cupboard behind me. Bloody hell, I don't know whether anyone else experiences this. My kids are terrible for it. Absolutely terrible. And as for putting milk back in the fridge in a heat wave, oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Do you think Balogun be option for a striker, says Asher? No. They can't turn lights off as well? Yeah, 50. It's not Seb. Seb's in bed. No, I'm on about the teenagers here. Can't shut doors, can't shut fridges, can't put milk back in the fridge, won't turn lights off. Ah, I've got a list. I could write a book. Anyway, Daddy chill. What people aren't considering here as well is if you're West Ham, I'm into this because, you know, as you might have realised, my passion is involved in this because it's actually a deal we could do if we had competent people in charge, and that's why it's pissing me off. So if you're West Ham and Arsenal give you 90 million, but Man United give you McTominay and Rice and McTominay, Maguire and 30 million, what's the better deal? 90 million or McTominay, Maguire and 30 million? I'm telling you now, McTominay, Maguire and 30 million is better for West Ham than 90 million because everyone knows you've got 90 million. And when you try and get your players, you're going to pay a tax. But if you can get two players that you really want and a bit of cash, that's better for West Ham than 90 million because you get an England centre-back, you get a midfielder that replaces Declan Rice straight away, and you get a bit of cash. It's a better deal for West Ham. It's a better deal for anybody a lot of the time to get a couple of players that you want as part of a deal. I just don't believe United will sign Mount and Rice, even with trading players and cash. Better use that cash on a striker, says Jonathan. Yeah, Jonathan, we're gonna buy a striker. I don't think that's without a doubt. Offering McTominay and Maguire is a win-win for both the clubs, and it makes good business sense. That's why United won't be able to do it. I completely agree, Stephen. Mark, I think we'd struggle to make a deal for Rice pudding at the moment, says AJ. And I can see McTominay going to West Ham, but Maguire's pride will never take that West Ham move, says James. And the deal is doable, and Arnold and Murta would go a long way to saving their jobs if they pulled the Rice one off. Where there's smoke, there's fire, says Charlie Max. And Patch, welcome, has been a member for 6 months. Look, I'm telling you now, if John Murta and Richard Arnold can pull off a deal involving Declan Rice to Manchester United, where we don't spend 90 million and we offload a couple of players that need to go, then well done. Well done. But that's the challenge, isn't it? I think that's a doable deal. I think it's a good deal for West Ham because you get two players you really want as part of it and cash. And I think from United's point of view, you remove two players of value and you get in your number one target in the midfield. It's a doable deal. Well, I say it's a doable deal, but to get to the point where you fight with Arsenal for come to us or go to them, you've got to get that deal done first. And yeah, look, Maguire, God knows, he's got nothing to prove. Why would he bother about going to West Ham? But look, I'm wearing a claret top. Come on, West Ham, do a deal. Hi, Mark, can we trade? Yeah, Dex, that's not even funny. And Mark, I think all it would take is competence from West Ham to suggest a swap of Maguire and McTominay for Rice, says Joe. And I don't think it will happen due to McTominay being valued at 80 million asset. McTominay plus 60 would work. However, I have no faith in Dumb and Dumber, says Henry T. Sorry, said Maguire. And I'm recovering from hernia surgery. News of a full sale or a couple of signings would make me feel a whole lot better, says Adam. I wish we could make you feel better, Adam. I really, really do. But look, we've spent a bit of time talking about that deal there. All I would say is, overarching this has to be the cynicism and the belief that this won't happen because we're incompetent at recruitment and that's why it will fail. But the components and ingredients for this deal to happen are unfortunately there. Rice would consider a move to United. Declan Rice is a number one target for Eric Ten Hag. He would be a good signing. West Ham do want McTominay and they do want Maguire. I mean, all the components are there. You're not offering them players they don't want. They do want Scott McTominay. The Guardian are talking about it. Sources close to West Ham are talking about it. Maguire, of course they'd want Maguire. He'd be better than any centre-back they've got. So they'd want those players. Would those players want to go there? Well, Scott McTominay should walk there because he'd go straight into a Premier League side that's going to be playing in the Europa League. McTominay, that would be a great move for him. Maguire, that would be a great move for him as well. But I don't think Maguire will do it. As I say, I think Maguire's got a very high opinion of himself that's not in reality. But look, we'll see. I don't think United would want to do it. They would think it's a loss for United. They don't even know enough about the squad the skilled players offer, says Surish. And Mark, completely off topic, but shouldn't we look at an understudy to Bruno, says Hasha. Well, we should, but we definitely don't have the money to be doing that at the moment. Yeah. So let's wait and see what happens with that one. It's an interesting one. It's one of those sort of topics I like to do during the transfer window, because in 2 weeks he'll be an Arsenal player and it will be completely irrelevant. But there was an opportunity, there is an opportunity, and there's a deal that benefits West Ham and the player. But United, I mean, look, let me just say this before we move on. Erik ten Hag really wants Declan Rice. Declan Rice would consider a move to Manchester United, and West Ham would like to take a couple of our players in part exchange for Rice. I mean, why are you not winning the race? Manager wants it, West Ham want it, Declan Rice will consider it. Why won't it happen? Because of the prats who do the deals. The Inquisition says, we're incompetent at buys, abysmal at sales. This swap deal would be impossible with this lot. And I think you're right. I think you are right. Anyway, let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about the centre-back situation. I know Mason Mount's a story, but it's not really. I'm not going to put it second on the playlist. We will talk about it, but we will talk about it a little bit later on. Also want to touch on the sale a little bit. I think what's going on here is that obviously we've pretty much messed up the deal for Kim Min-jae, which is amazing considering the amount of time we've spent on that deal, the amount of time we've scouted that player, the amount of time we were favourites to get that player, and the amount of time that player was looking to come to Manchester United, and we've still blown it. But it looks like we've blown the Kim Min-jae deal. And it annoys me. It absolutely annoys me because he's got a bloody release clause. Why is it over the years it's always Bayern Munich or Juventus or Barcelona that get these really good players on free transfers or cheap release clauses? Why are we never able to do it? Why are we, one of the biggest clubs in the world, incapable at recruiting players? I mean, Gundogan to Barcelona, what a fantastic deal. I'm not saying we could have done that. He plays for Man City, but Kim Min-jae should be wearing a Man United shirt next season for 40 million quid. Instead, he's going to Bayern Munich. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, so what's United's next target? Well, Fabrizio said this over a month ago on this channel. He said, if they don't do the Kim Min-jae deal, keep an eye on French centre-backs playing in France. Well, this is coming in from France. Erik ten Hag will talk to Monaco's Axel Disasi soon. Any move for him will be 40 million euros upwards. Arsenal and Chelsea are also interested in him. United have not made an offer yet, but are ahead in the race for the player. So it looks like this will be the second target that United go for. Now I'd rule out Arsenal, because I think Arsenal are probably going to get Yuri and Timber. But looks like we're heading for the Monaco centre-back. Now I might need to get Jack back on the show. Hope you enjoyed the video earlier where we were talking about Højlund, to tell me a little bit more about this centre-back. I know a little bit about him, but I mean, I think he's mid-20s. I think he's mid-20s now. I don't know. Todibo is better. Apparently he's heading off to Spurs. But look, there's nothing wrong with being 24. Nothing wrong with being 24. I'd love to be 24 again. I'm not even the other way round. But I think he is obviously a player that United are in for. Whether we want him or not, Fabrizio mentioned this over a month ago. French centre-back playing in the French league. That's the player that we're looking at. It's not Kim Min-jae. It's not first choice. That's all I've got to say on it. I don't know whether he's going to be a success. I don't know how good he would be. But bottom line, he's not first choice. Kim Min-jae was first choice. Now, last time we went for our second choice centre-back, it worked all right. We got Martinez instead of Timber, but he's not first choice, and he's probably going to cost us about the bloody same as Kim Min-jae as well. Any truth to the Barella rumours? Italian Herrera would give us the legs of McTominay with more quality. We need those players with that dog in them, says Spot On. And Mark, I've seen no end of social media pages mentioning Mbappe and how he could be linked with the Saudi deal. I'm taking this as all just crap, says Henri. I don't know what that means, Henry. What Saudi deal? One would think buying Kim Min-jae for 50 million when he's valued at 80 million would be a no-brainer for our execs. Also, De Gea's treatment reminds me of the Batman quote, "You either leave a hero or live long enough to become the villain." Very good, Sakib. Very profound. Please, Mark, I beg you to bring the chart show back. Maybe Beth can do it if you don't want to, says Tusha. Well, remind us in August, Tusha, because you might not be aware. It's 21st of June and there aren't any matches to do a chart show for, and there won't be for another couple of months. Yeah, I think that just going back to that previous point about the Barella story, I'm not aware of United legitimately being in for Barella. We're going to talk about the sale in a minute, Kevin. Thanks for your super chat, but I'm not aware of any story about Manchester United and Barella. Well, there will be a story out there, but not of any credibility. Bayern offered him 16 million gross wages. Move on, says SB. I doubt Bayern Munich offered him 16 million pounds in wages. I don't think Bayern Munich are run like that. 16 million pounds in wages is about 300 and something grand a week. I don't think we offered him that. Surely, if they did, they didn't offer him that. Bayern Munich aren't that club. No way. No way would they do that. They might have done it in euros, but that's still a lot of money. But look, in relation to what we were talking about there, and I've completely forgotten what it was now because you've blown my mind with that. Barella, we're not in for Barella at the moment. We're not considering Barella. Newcastle inquired about Barella. Inter Milan sort of said you're having a laugh. And now Newcastle are going for a player that it hurts me to say, because if you've watched the United stand for any length of time, I wanted Tonali before he went to AC Milan. I've been a fan of Tonali for years. I've had him on FIFA career modes. I love Tonali. He's one of my favourite sort of non-Premier League midfielders. So when I read that Newcastle are about to buy Tonali, I'm like, oh my God. Bruno Guimaraes was a player many of us said before he went to Newcastle, his stats are incredible. And he's come to Newcastle and continued that. If they get Tonali as well, I think he's a fantastic... I don't know whether Tonali will work. I'm not going to say he's going to be the world's best player. But if I was a Newcastle fan... Well, I'm not a Newcastle fan and I'm excited. It's a bit like Onana, really. You know, if Onana went to Chelsea, I'd watch Chelsea because I like Onana. And if Tonali goes to Newcastle, I'll watch Newcastle more because I like Tonali. So, I mean, I just love football in general. But I think that's... I'm not surprised by Newcastle doing that, by the way. I think their recruitment is magnificent. I think in the short period of time that they've been owned by Saudi Arabia, they've recruited people into recruitment who are very good at their job. And Tonali would be very interesting. I mean, very, very interesting. Mark, could you go back to my preferred midfield option for United questions, says Hasha. And are you hopeful we will sign any of the players we've been linked with, says Ashley. Yes. And in my opinion, summer window should be Kane, Højlund, Mount, Rabiot, all for around 200 million. And a possible swap for Rice would be bonus. Sale of Fred, etc. for a goalkeeper, says Alina. Well, look, my preferred midfield option would probably have been Casido. From a personal point of view, I just like the way that Casido plays football. But Declan Rice would be a very, very good signing for Manchester United as well. Milinkovic-Savic is actually gettable this year, says Charlie. I mean, Milinkovic-Savic must be about 40 now. It feels like a different lifetime we were linked to him. That was the Mourinho days, wasn't it? Yeah, Casido's going to go to Chelsea. I think Declan Rice probably goes to Arsenal. And we get Rabiot. But I would like Manchester United to... if you're asking me what my preferred option would be... Look, I'm like Eric Ten Hag. I want Frankie de Jong. I do. I want Frankie de Jong. But we're not getting Frankie de Jong. So for me, it has to be Casido or Declan Rice. Newcastle are looking to improve their midfield with Tonali. Meanwhile, we're looking at Rabiot, says Jackson. Yeah. And did you see that Graham Souness is back on TalkSport, says Cameron? Nope. And why do people think that Rabiot is a bad player, says Red? I'm not going to spend any time talking about Rabiot because I bored myself this morning. It's not that Rabiot is a bad player. It's what he represents. He represents greed because he is greedy, and so is his agent. We tried to get him last year, and he priced himself out of a move. We're going back in again because he's now free, and he will get the money that he wants. He's not the player that we should be signing, in my opinion. He could have come to Man United last summer and he priced himself out of a move for greed. No one wants to say it, but it's true. Juventus were going to do a deal with us. John Murta was in Turin, and him and his mother priced himself out of a move for greed. If he wanted to play Man United, he wouldn't have done for Man United. He would have done that. He wouldn't have done that. The money he wanted was ridiculous, by the way. You would faint. North of 200k, ridiculous money. But he's not a bad player. It just represents a bad deal because we haven't got the money. We would not be anywhere near Rabiot if we had the money. Tonali's a beast. We have to go for him. He would be perfect next to Casemiro. Stop talking to Mount and Rice, but most Italians don't leave Serie A, says All in Flames. Mark, could the Rice rumours have anything to do with Qatar winning, says Rory. Nope. And Ray says, in all honesty, we will sign a significant player as all targets are going and Sale holding it up, I think, says Ray. And I've agreed with you for years, Mark. Tonali is a great young player. I'm jealous Newcastle are moving for him, says Cody Richards. Well, look, we can't do anything about that. We're not going to sign Tonali. He's probably going to end up wearing a Newcastle shirt, isn't he? Why no mention of Amrabat, bossed Rice in the Champions League final, says Adam. Well, we have been linked to Amrabat. We know we've been linked to him. I don't want him. I don't massively think he moves Man United up a level, but some people do. But we have been linked to him. You know, we could move for him. I'm not hearing anything at the moment. But anyway. Mason Mount. I want to talk about Mason Mount very, very quickly. There was a story at the lunchtime. Beth answered it. Are we still in for Schneider, says James. You're spot on, Mark. The best signing Newcastle made was getting Dan Ashworth from Brighton. If you're sensible, you employ the best. Yeah, Steve, you're absolutely correct. They went and got basically the head of recruitment from Brighton as soon as the Saudi Arabians took over. I think they did it in the January. Like, it was a fantastic bit of business. In all honesty, Man United will sign a Cavani, Weghorst. And I tell you what, if Manchester United had gone and got Dan Ashworth from Brighton last January, we'd be in a much better position as well. Because if you recruit competent people, you become competent. In all honesty, United will sign a Cavani, Weghorst, Igalo type, maybe a Cardi from PSG, says Sud. And I feel so sorry for Ten Hag, says Glazers out. As it stands, there's no way he's doing better than he did this season. Literally getting one of his top targets in Mount, Kane, Rice and Kim, not a chance. He isn't Harry Potter. He can't perform magic. Well, look, Mason Mount... There's a bit of confusion with Mason Mount. Would you consider Onana from Everton? I would, Darren. Cost a lot of money. He would cost a lot of money. I wouldn't be surprised if he does leave Everton, actually. Mason Mount to Manchester United. Mason Mount himself is now fearful that he might get priced out of a move. Chelsea want a lot of money for Mason Mount. Man United don't want to pay any more than 50 million because he's got a year left on his contract. I suspect a deal will get done for 55, which is probably a little bit too much. But at the end of the day, are we all going to sit here and say, don't pay £5 million worth more than what you want to pay to get a player that Erik Ten Hag wants? Look, I'm not saying Mason Mount's, Frankie de Jong, because he's not. I'm not saying he's Kevin De Bruyne, because he's not. But he is a high priority target for Erik Ten Hag. And I remember saying this about Perisic with Mourinho. Inter Milan wanted 45 million. United offered 40 and walked. And I always look at that and I go, I think it was the summer before Mourinho got the sack as well. And I was like, Perisic at that time would have been, crosses on tap. And we didn't do it. We wouldn't pay 5 million more. And you think, well, what do you win then? The player that the manager wants, you walk away from for £5 million. All right, you got your principles, but Mourinho ends up getting the sack, and Perisic would have been a good signing at that time, and we didn't do the deal. So I'm sort of going to not be a hypocrite here, and I'm going to say, if it takes 55 million to get Mason Mount, it's 5 million more than you've offered. Just do the deal and put the pressure on Ten Hag that he wants this player. I'd back out the Mount deal. He's not worth around the same price as Tonali. We need to look at other deals and compare, says Connor. And Mark, we can scout, etc., try and get players into the club. That's when we get stumped. We don't have the skills. They could not talk a player into buying an ice cream, says Peter. Yeah, the recruitment at United is terrible, unfortunately. G-Man says we dodged a bullet with Perisic. Yeah, we're not talking about the old man who plays for Spurs, mate. We're talking about... I'm trying to think how many years ago that was. Perisic would have been a good signing at that time. I love the idea of Mount and Højlund, but that is not enough quality added to the midfield or up front, says Jackson. Nobody wants Mount. Well, Liverpool did want Mason Mount, actually. So, look, I'm not here to sit and defend Mason Mount, by the way. That's not. You're not going to pull me into that sort of a debate like you might get me into with David De Gea. All I've said about Mason Mount is I actually do think he's a good player. I think he's very similar to Havertz. He's very similar to Kovacic. Crap last year, but there's good players there. Would I be signing Would I have signed Mason Mount? No. When we got linked to him, I was shocked. But then I was like, this is clearly a number one target for Erik Ten Hag. You've got to do that deal. I'm not the manager. You're not the manager. Are we going to sit here and say, don't get the manager's first choice number 8 because we disagree? We're not managing the team, he is. Managers make mistakes. Managers make genius moves. You get Mason Mount because Erik Ten Hag wants Mason Mount. That's why you do it. Realistically, Mount would have been 100 million plus last summer. So if Ten Hag wants him for 55, it seems reasonable, if not slightly too high, says Reese. And Anana for 40, Todibo for 30, Mount for 60, Rice in a 2-player deal is 30, and Højlund for 50. Total spent 210 minus player sales, is FIFA crazy. And Richard says, it's a shame that as United fans we go, it's talk about these good players as a far-fetched dream for us, while other clubs are doing all the right stuff, says Richard. And we can get players like Manu Kone and Viega for 40 million. I get Ten Hag wants Mount, but this Mount experiment isn't going to work, says HKN. And I hope we go for players like Güler, Simmons and Kone, but I doubt it with our scout, says Mohammed. Well, you know, the one thing I will say, because I don't want to, not acknowledge that I've said it before. And Stephen says, if Erik Ten Hag wants Mount, we should get him. Besides, Mount is better than Fred and Scott, so he's certainly an improvement to the midfield. Thank you, Stephen. Also had a super chat here from Sud, who says, wish we could have bought Palina from Fulham, got him for 20 million. Our recruitment is horrible. I do actually look at the Ajax side that Ten Hag built, and there was a few South American players there. And how much Ten Hag had in recruiting those players, I actually don't know. Because Ajax have always had very, very good recruitment. But it does surprise me that we haven't looked to bring any South American players into this club from South America yet. I know we've got Casemiro and we know we've got Anthony and I know we've got Martinez, and you could say, well, that's 3 South American players in 12 months. But I do wonder at what point or how long it's going to take for Erik Ten Hag, who clearly wants a long-term project at Manchester United. I do wonder at what point he is going to start to recruit younger, well-scouted players. Because this works well for a lot of clubs, and it has to work for Manchester United. Now, look, Højlund is a young player, but he's a well-known player already. When are we going to start recruiting, well, as I would call it, going for players that people go, who's that then? And that's another step forward we need to make. 50 million outright would get the Mount deal done. United offering 40 plus dubious add-ons, facepalm. Also, Haaland would get swallowed up as a main striker, says Sam Brox. Mark Perisic won the treble with Bayern after that, says Aditya. I can't remember the year we should have bought Perisic. I suspect it was 2017. He would have been a revelation at that time. Instead of Rabiot, could we not go for Enzo Lefebvre? 1 year left on his contract, can't be more than 20 million, says FIFA. Yeah, but why is no one else going for him? This is a player that a lot of people talk about, but why is no one else going for him? Where's the queue for this Enzo Lefebvre? I don't see it. I don't. The year we signed Lukaku, says Araf. Yeah, well, I was really disappointed we didn't get Perisic. I remember at the time there was a lot of people saying that they didn't want him, but I was disappointed. Anyway, let's talk about the sale very briefly. There was a bit of an update from CBS today talking about the sale of Manchester United. Basically confirming what a lot of us already know, if we're being honest, that United sale has been going on for a long time, but it did sort of give something that I think is really, really important, and that is that Manchester United are certainly progressing in a sense that you've got things going on in the background which we're fully aware of. I mean, I feel like I'm speaking to the converted here, and you do get a lot of repetition in articles, but with regards to the sale, it is progressing to a point where things would move quickly if they chose a winner, but you're still probably looking at what I was on about the other day, 2 months from today, if they picked Althani or they picked Sir Jim. I think 2 months from today, which would take you to back end of August. I think I think this transfer window is probably gone, if I'm being honest. I don't want to be the person who says that, because I don't want it to be true, but I think this transfer window is gone, and that really is hard to say. But you know, what do you want? Like, maybe Qatar will bring very good recruitment with them. I think they have to, Darren. I think Sir Jim Radcliffe has to. Even Sir Jim Radcliffe's been linked to like Paul Mitchell and stuff like that. United should buy Gullah, beast of a player, says Mohammed. But I think this transfer window in relation to new ownership impact is already gone. It doesn't mean we won't spend 200 million. I still think we will. And it doesn't mean we won't buy players. But I think in relation to a transfer window that this new ownership can impact on, I think it's gone. And it reminds me of what somebody said to me a few weeks ago. It'll get to a point with Qatar and Sir Jim where they don't actually want to be associated with this summer transfer window. And what that means is they'll want their first window to be an impactful one, where they're in control. And even if they got control tomorrow, too much of this window has gone already in relation to scouting and ideas for them to actually say that's our first window. They will want their first window to be a Qatari window or a Sir Jim window. And I think we've logically already missed the boat on that. And we're not going to get an announcement of a sale tonight or tomorrow. So by the time they get hold of this club, you're talking probably September, maybe October. We're definitely starting the season with the Glazers in charge. So if people are thinking about protesting against Wolves, you're probably safe to start thinking about it, because they will still be in charge. They may have announced who the new owner is going to be, but that handover process won't happen like that. I mean, I think some people still think if the Glazers say we're going with Sir Jim, he'll be in charge tomorrow. There are checks with the Premier League. There are lots of things that need to be done. So I think that this transfer window is pretty much done in relation to it will be a Glazer summer. But it won't be a traditional Glazer summer because they're trying to sell the club. We will buy players. I think it will be similar to last year. A bit chaotic. We'll probably overpay a bit. We will buy some good players. Will it be what we should have done? Will it be competent? Will it be messy? Of course it will. But yeah, I think probably for the last few weeks we've been hanging on there, hoping that we'll see some sort of progression in a sense of at some point there's going to be by Glazers, hello Althani, but it can't happen. And another thing that can't happen as well, I would love United to go for Conor Gallagher. I think he'd be perfect, says Odin. I really don't. Damien, welcome to Members Club. It was clear this window was gone with the Glazers taking forever to leave, and there's no way we will spend 200 million unless Qatar takes over next week, says Mehdi. And Qatar comes in, we could have had a good January transfer window. We could have a good January transfer window, says Dazzo. And I completely agree. The Glazers have already screwed us for this summer. Next summer, winter, hopefully Qatar puts in a competent staff and we can have a really impactful transfer window, says Jackson. Look, I don't want to be saying these things, but they're also very, very logical. Somebody said in the chat a minute ago, well, what if they agree to sell to Al Thani in early July and then Al Thani throws a load of money for the Glazers to spend while they sort the sale out? That's not going to happen, is it? You don't do that. You don't buy a house and while you're going through the process, say there's a couple of million to build an extension and then your mortgage falls through and you're giving them a couple of million. You know, Qatar can't commit any money and Sir Jim can't commit any money until they know they've got the club. And the Glazers don't actually decide that. The authorities do. So there won't be this big influx of cash from Qatar if they decide they go with Qatar, because then they've got to go through the regulations and stuff. We're just not going to see that. So we're going to have the summer that we're going to have. Now, I disagree with somebody who said that we won't spend 200 million, because I think we will. Net. I think we will make 100 in sales and spend 100 in cash. So I think we will spend £200 million. Also, as well, if I'm buying this club and I'm Al Thani or Sir Jim, I'm probably going to get to the point now where I'm like, I'm not rushing this, because if I rush this through and I do get hold of the club in late July, that gives me a month. Most people have done their business already. I'm in the club and I'm talking to recruitments and directors of football and CEOs I don't rate. It's not good for us as fans, because it means next season is a leap into the unknown, potentially after a chaotic summer. But if I'm the new owner of Man United, I'm like, I want a new CEO, I want a new director of football, and I want these things done by January. So I think we're already looking at that now. Logically, I just think we're not going to get an impactful new owner summer transfer window now. I think it's too late. Why are we not in for João Felix, says Maka? Probably down to money. No matter what people say, but Chelsea went on a good selling spree, says Ashen. And I completely agree. The Glazers have already screwed us, says Jackson. Yeah, we've done that one, haven't we, as well? I wouldn't be surprised if the club isn't sold, says Sam. There will be some aspect of sale, Sam. It'd be the easiest thing in the world for me to say maybe the Glazers don't sell at all, but they're not. They can't not do that. There will be some element of sale. Now, whether it will be Sir Jim and the Glazers keep a percentage and he owns half the club and the New York Stock Exchange own 30%, maybe that's our future. Maybe it'll be a full sale to Al Thani. Maybe there will be another. Maybe there'll be another investment opportunity of some kind. I don't know, but they will sell in some way. Andre Onana has been sounded out about a move to Manchester United as they continue to await a final decision on David De Gea's future. That's coming in from the Daily Mail, a football reporter. Andre Onana has been sounded out about a move as they continue to await a final decision on David De Gea's future. Yeah, well, that's sort of slow sports news, really, because as we've known for over a week now, there is an issue in relation to David De Gea and Manchester United, and we don't know how it's going to end. I think the longer it goes on, the more likely that we will have to replace De Gea, and if we're going to replace De Gea, I'd be very happy with Onana. I'm a massive fan of Onana. He's box office, so I wouldn't say it's breaking news. I would say it's known news, and I would say we're probably not going to get any answer until next week as we approach the 30th of June, which by my calculations is a week on Friday. So yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I've done this poll, and I apologise if I have, but who would you prefer as the goalkeeper, Onana or Costa? Who would you prefer out of Costa or Onana as your goalkeeper? We might have done it before. We may well have done it before, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that one. For me, it's Onana. I do like Costa, but yeah, it's an interesting one. – 73% of you have gone with Onana. 27% are going to go with Costa there. Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting, isn't it? The thing about Onana is he's just so fascinating to watch. Yeah, it'd be very interesting. I can't really comment on the goalkeeping situation because everybody I've spoken to, and there's nothing private. It's what you're seeing publicly. United don't even know what's going to happen. Ten Hag doesn't know what's going to happen, and David De Gea doesn't know what's going to happen. And I think so much of it depends on. You know what? If I'm being honest, I think if West Ham said we'd like to do a deal with you for Declan Rice, United would do that deal and probably not have enough money to do the Onana deal and keep De Gea. That's literally what I was told a couple of days ago. This is all about moving budgets. If they can get Kane and they can get Mount and they can get Rice, they won't buy Onana because there'll be no money left. If they can't get Kane and they're going for Højlund, there's a little bit more money there. If they're not getting Rice and they're getting Rabiot, there's a little bit more money there. And this is literally, I mean, it's not a good way to treat De Gea. It's not a good way for Ten Hag to plan. But they're literally adjusting their transfer budget by the day. And if you get Rabiot instead of Rice, you've saved yourself enough to buy a goalkeeper. If you get Rasmus Højlund instead of Kane, you've saved yourself enough money to buy a goalkeeper. But if you get Højlund and you buy Rice, you can't get a goalkeeper. So really, I think what United are looking at the moment is if we don't get Rice and we don't get Kane, there's enough money to get a goalkeeper. But if we get Kane or we get Rice, we'll keep De Gea. And it's literally about, it's like having 200 million. You know, you ever used to do it? You ever did that game before where you've got a bag of rice, you've got a fox, you've got a farmer, and you've got a boat. And how do you get all three across the river without... And you've got a chicken as well. You've got a chicken, a fox, a bag of rye, a bag of corn, and a farmer, and a boat. You've got to get everyone to the other side of the river, and you can only have two things. Well, the farmer's got to be in the bloody boat to drive it. So, do you leave the chicken with the corn? It will get ate. Do you leave the fox with the chicken? It will get ate. You know, and you've got to, and that's what United are sort of doing with this 200 million. They're sort of like, you know, how do we make it work? And that's basically what's going on. I understand the desire to replace De Gea at some point, but what did he do to get such disrespect from the club? Says Stephen. I agree. I think the way the club have treated him is disgusting. The World Cup put me off Costa. He's got a mistake in him, says Dazzo. I'd like Onana with Kova as backup, says Andy. And Onana running the ball into the midfield would send my blood pressure through the roof, says Joshua. It would. I almost said that a couple of minutes ago. He would have you on the edge of your seat, but he's also very, very good at it as well. I mean, look, it could be like Bartes. It could be a bloody disaster. But, yeah, I think it'll work. Well, I'm not saying it'll work. I would be interested in Onana, as I think most of you would, with 74%. Anyway, look, fantastic show tonight. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Obviously, if anything happens later, we will go live. I'm not expecting anything tonight. And we'll be back in the morning for the 10 o'clock show. Fantastic show, as always. The grass isn't always greener. Look, I'd keep De Gea this summer. I've always said that. I'd use the money. If I've got a simple choice, right? Declan Rice and keep De Gea, or Rabiot and get Onana, Declan Rice. And that's the sort of decisions that United are making. It's where they can save money to do that. Right, we're getting Rabiot on a free, we can buy a goalkeeper. We get Rice, we can't buy a goalkeeper. I'd rather sort out that midfield. I'd rather have Rice than Rabiot. Hi Mark, is soup a food or a drink, says Tashik. It's definitely a food. It's definitely a food. Thanks everyone, fantastic show. You are legends. Do not forget Manscaped, 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. You won't regret it. Thank you very much and I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for watching.